Last week, TJ and I concluded going through the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline of the Global Methodist Church. This took us 23 episodes, and we appreciate those of you who've been along on this ride with us. Of course, the ride is not over because there are a couple of documents that have pretty much the same standing as the covenant document that we all have, the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline. We are hopefully going to cover in 3 episodes what is in the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline referred to as the JPP, which stands for Judicial Practice and Procedure Rules of the GMC. So this is a document that outlines all the nuts and bolts of how it is that the judiciary of the denomination is going to operate whenever complaints are filed, resolutions sought, justice pursued within the denomination. So this is something that I am not geared for. And TJ, do you feel like you're geared for this?
I don't know if I'd say I'm geared for. I kind of like the lawyery stuff, but I'm definitely not like informed enough to be an expert at it, or mildly an expert, or mildly competent at it, I guess.
I do want to be good at this stuff eventually. You know, it's like whenever people actually know the laws and they get pulled over by the police and the police are trying to do something to them that they're not supposed to do. And they're like, actually, you know, I'm a lawyer and I know that you can't do this. And then, it's just empowering to know the rules around you, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. That's all there is to say about it. Yeah. So, of course, the reason that, as I'm plowing through this, the reason I care is because justice fell apart in the United Methodist Church, and that's why. Right. That's one of the reasons why I knew I needed to leave. So if we're going to protect the Global Methodist Church, then we need to have rules in the books that make sense and that we defend. And if we're not willing to do that, then we really have no right to expect for the GMC to do well. And so you're nodding your head. You agree?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and turn to this. This is a 16-page document. We're going to average 5 1/3 pages for 3 weeks. I don't want to be taking any more time with this. It references the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline. You can download both of these documents for free online. Just do a Google search, or you can look in the show notes where we will have links to these, and you can download them yourself. We'll also have the portions on screen that we're reading. So if you're not listening but watching, then you can see the same words that we do.
It's globalmethodist.org is the website. And then it's under resources. It's got this, the Transitional Book of Doctrine and Discipline, the Catechism, all the stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at the document here, and I'll read point 1. We'll make our way through very similar to how we've already done this season. So this is going to be point 1, applicability of judicial practice and procedure rules. This is the JPP. The Judicial Practice and Procedure Rules have been adopted by the Transitional Leadership Council of the GMC and have force of church law. So that's why we're covering this in this series. If it's church law, it doesn't matter if it's in the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline. We need to know it. The rules, together with Part 8 of the TBDD, shall govern the processes outlined in Part 8 during the time between the legal formation of the GMC and the effective date of any legislation passed by the Convening General Conference designed to replace them. In the event of a conflict between the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline and the Judicial Practice and Procedure Rules, the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline shall govern. A couple things about the JPP. It was crafted by Tom Lambrecht, Chap Temple, and Jay Therrell primarily, all of whom are very procedurally aware and conscientious and faithful men. I spoke with Keith Boyette about this document a few days ago, asked him directly, is this document liable to change significantly at the convening conference? He said he very much doubts it. Of course, he's not going to he's not going to keep it from being changed or anything. He's just saying, as it is, there's not a bunch of people champing at the bit to change it.
Right. Yeah. I guess I'm fair.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay. Anything else to say about this?
No, not really. Not that first part. There's not a whole lot in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Take us into section 1 then.
All right, section 1, administrative complaint process. This is in reference to paragraphs 802 through 806.
Right. So let's take a moment for that because we covered this in, I don't know, episode 19. I should have looked this up before now. But this is a section. The key thing to keep in mind here there are two different kinds of complaints. There's an administrative complaint and a judicial complaint. The administrative complaint is just if somebody's not doing their job. They're negligent, they're just doing a terrible job. They need to be removed or they need to be corrected. They need some attention. That's an administrative complaint. A judicial complaint is a criminal or moral failing of some sort. They're actively misbehaving in a way that needs attention. So we're dealing with the administrative complaints first. That's just the ones of people being negligent, being bad at their job.
Gotcha.
Okay, go ahead.
So 2, procedures governing administrative complaints concerning clergy. This is in reference to paragraph 805. Point 1, supervisory response. The first step in resolving an administrative complaint is a meeting of the complainant, the respondent, and the bishop or presiding elder or district superintendent. Both the complainant and the respondent are entitled to have with them a support person who shall have voice in the meeting. The participants in the meeting shall be informed by a minimum of 20 days prior to the scheduled meeting, and the written complaint shall be presented to the complainant at least 20 days prior to any supervisory response. The purpose of the supervisory response is to, so far as possible, establish facts, consider circumstances and explanations, determine if there is an issue that merits action, and arrive at a plan of addressing the unsatisfactory performance of ministerial duties, if any.
Okay.
So that's
so this is an administrative complaint concerning clergy.
And
so
clergy specifically. Yes.
A clergy has not done their job or has done a bad job. They've been negligent or irresponsible. So someone in their realm can issue a complaint. So it's not just someone in their realm. I actually reviewed this a couple minutes ago. Found it at page 806, or paragraph 806. Administrative complaints may be filed by laypersons who are within the scope of a respondent's ministry. Remember, we don't have defendants, we have respondents.
Yeah.
So you have a complainant, not a plaintiff, and then a respondent, not a defendant. So an administrative complaint can be filed by a layperson who's within the scope of the respondent's ministry, by other clergy familiar with the respondent's ministry, the presiding elder, or the bishop. So I think I read this to mean you can't have interloper clergy that are just aware of another clergy that is being negligent in their job, and they file it instead of. It needs to be someone directly connected.
Well, I guess my question would be, it says other clergy familiar with the respondent's ministry. Like, I guess, what does that mean? Because I can be familiar with the ministry of what's his face in Tulsa, Transformation Church. I don't remember.
Non-Methodist.
He's non-Methodist, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've surely a lot of people know who that guy is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not
anyways.
Craig Rochelle, is I don't know.
No. He's Life Church. Anyway, some famous
They're all the
pastor.
same to me.
I can be passingly familiar with somebody's
Yeah.
ministry. That doesn't mean I'm underneath their ministry at all.
Yeah, I think it's more open. So when we're talking about not doing one's duties, you really do have to be kind of close to see, okay, like they're not coming into the office 4 days a week, or you have to be close. So, yeah, I mean,
I would say involved would probably be a better.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not necessarily involved, because then you might not be involved in your.
I think it would be very strange if substantial allegations were made by another clergy member and then the person responsible says, you're not close enough to actually file these charges. So maybe,
yeah. I just like a clear definition of what that particular thing means. So.
Yeah. All right. You ready to go on a little bit?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
The supervisory response shall result in one of three possible outcomes. Outcome A. The presiding elder, district superintendent, or bishop dismisses the complaint with the agreement of a majority of the presiding elders, district superintendents, in the annual conference as having no basis in church law or fact. In such a case, the presiding elder or bishop shall provide a written rationale for dismissing the complaint, which shall be placed in the respondent's personnel file, and copies of which shall be given to the complainant and respondent.
Yeah. So
Okay.
option 1 is dismissal,
Mm-hmm.
and it won't just be expunged from the record. There's going to be a record for every clergyman
Right.
that says, okay, this charge was brought, but we dismissed it for these reasons.
Yeah. It would be weird to just not put it in there. Like, so if paper trails are good.
I'm a big fan of paper trails.
Yeah.
And that you'll see that this is provided for at every stage of the
Yeah.
JPP process.
Especially if somebody's being, like, for whatever reason, malicious and is bringing up these charges constantly. And you can go back, and the bishop or district superintendent can go back and look like, hey, this is either a pattern that's maybe we should look into, or is just being brought up by a bunch of people for absolutely no reason. And I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Good to have it.
Yeah.
All right. B. This is option B.
Yeah.
A resolution of the complaint is agreed to by all parties, signed, and placed in the respondent's personnel file. So all of them get together. They say, here's a resolution we can all come to.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the resolution.
Yeah,
Whatever
and
that
this
is.
again is only with administrative stuff. It's not
Right.
judicial complaints. So there's been bad job performance. We've come up with an agreement about. The first one is there is nothing wrong with the job performance. Get rid of this complaint.
Yeah.
Second one is, okay, something was wrong. It needed attention. We all agree on what needs to happen. We're happy. It's something akin to a just resolution.
Yeah.
All right, third option now.
C, a resolution of the complaint is not agreed to by the presiding elder or bishop.
And the presiding elder.
Let me read it again. A resolution of the complaint is not agreed to, and the presiding elder or bishop determines that the allegations have a basis in fact that merits a response. In such case, the complaint shall be forwarded to the chairperson of the Board of Ministry for an examination and investigative process. Let me finish this out before you say.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
The supervisory response shall be completed within 60 days of the receipt of the complaint by the bishop or presiding elder, with a possibility of one and only one 30-day extension if agreed upon by the respondent and the complainant.
So that last part addresses, these cases getting kicked down the line. We've talked plenty about that. So this third option is that
it's not dismissed. They didn't come to a resolution, so it's got to go up to the Board of Ministry.
Yeah. The clergy that's been filed a complaint against just says, I've done nothing wrong. I'm not guilty of the complaint. But then the people who've reviewed it, they can't get to a place of what needs to happen.
There is a problem here.
Yeah. Essentially, we can't
else.
dismiss it. There's something here. You're not willing to negotiate with the person filing the complaint, so we're going to have to put this to a larger body.
Yeah. Okay. That last one, I guess, included within the 60 days. So they've got to do one of those three things within 60 days.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
And then you get an option of one 30-day extension if everybody agrees.
Oh, it said if everybody agrees? I didn't catch that.
If agreed upon by both the respondent and the complainant.
I think what that meant was you can only have a 30-day extension if it's agreed upon by everybody. Otherwise, if everybody doesn't agree, you have to do it within 60 days.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. 2, investigative response. A committee of at least 5 persons from the Board of Ministry shall convene to investigate the allegations of the complaint. The purpose of the investigative response is to, so far as possible, establish facts, consider circumstances and explanations, determine if there is an issue that merits action, and arrive upon a plan of addressing the unsatisfactory performance of ministerial duties, if any. The committee shall have access to all relevant material related to the allegations and shall be able to interview witnesses. When witnesses are interviewed, the respondent and complainant, along with their support persons with voice, shall be entitled to be present and also ask questions. That's straightforward. You didn't have anything on that? You got a couple of things underlined, it looks like.
Yeah, I was mostly just trying to make myself pay attention. So,
Gotcha.
um,
So
and this can escalate even more, but for right now, yeah, it's in this crew's hands.
Yeah, so if it's been kicked up further, it goes to the Board of Ministries. This is at least 5 people. They get to do all the investigative stuff. And if they're interviewing anybody, both the person being complained against and the person that brought the complaint get to be there with their support persons and
who get to
ask
talk.
questions.
Yeah, a lot of the minutia involved in the following pages is who gets to talk in different settings versus who just gets to be there.
Right.
So I try paying attention to these things.
All right, so second part of this paragraph. When the committee has finished its investigation, it shall hold a closing hearing with the respondent and complainant and their support persons with voice entitled to be present. The evidence regarding the allegations shall be presented. The respondent shall also have the opportunity to present evidence, ask questions of witnesses, and make statements to the committee. A verbatim recording of the hearing, I like that, shall be made and kept in the respondent's personnel file. At the conclusion of the hearing, the committee shall enter into executive session for the purpose of resolving the allegations. The committee's investigation shall be completed and the hearing held within 60 days of the referral of the complaint to the Board of Ministry, with the possibility of one and only one 30-day extension if agreed upon by both the respondent and the complainant. A written report of the committee's discussion, including decision, thank you, including rationale, shall be placed in the respondent's personnel file and copies given to the respondent and complainant. Okay.
So you liked the verbatim record. We're going to see a lot more of that. We're going to see in a lot of these proceedings, I think the only place where it's not expected that there be a verbatim record is anytime they enter into executive session.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking that was like a recording, but I guess it's not. It's just a record.
Yeah.
A written record.
Yeah.
I would prefer the recorded version, but
yeah, me too. Yeah.
Okay. At least it's verbatim.
But also, if you're doing a written record, the best way to do that currently is to record it and then put it through software.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, and just to think about it, if you've got they've got, what are the people in
stenographers?
Stenographers. Yeah. You got to hire somebody that's good at that. And they've got like special equipment that they do that. Just record it.
Yeah, that's expensive. Yeah. Yeah, it is much better to have a recording. I guess you still want to have it transcribed in writing so that you can do a word search.
That'd be nice, yeah. But there's stuff that can do that automatically.
Yeah.
And somebody can, if necessary, somebody can go back and do that later if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Or just at least go over the...
Yeah, what we're going through right now in our society is it is finally cheap enough, logistically feasible enough to record everything, run everything through software. We don't need to have all these bottlenecks of human labor involved now.
Right.
And so that goes with attending these meetings as well. Hypothetically, all of these meetings don't have to even be done in person. They can all be done online.
Right.
So that removes a lot of logistical complications, a lot of financial obligations. You're not going to find in this document a commitment to, we're always going to do this stuff virtually. We're always going to have this software to make it possible. Rather, it's kind of a both and thing.
Yeah.
Regardless of how you do it, it doesn't speak to methods. It just says, here's what's got to happen.
Right.
Here's the people who's got to be privy to it. Here's what the byproduct has got to be. Right. Okay.
Is there anything else on that one that's, I'm not looking at your underlines, I'm looking at mine.
Yeah. Just a note. So you get a whole other 60-day period with a potential 30-day backlog after that first period. Yeah. So depending on what the specifics of the charges are, we're talking about a massive escalation and a long time spent of a pastor just having to defend himself against.
Well, even then, like between the first part of this and the second part of this, the longest it can be is what? It's 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. If that's with extensions on both of them.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a long time, but it's not.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
The investigative response shall result in one of three outcomes. Option A, the committee may find the allegations are without sufficient basis to take action and dismiss the complaint. So that's the easy one. They say, this is garbage, throw it out. So, okay, no issues there. B, the committee may find the allegations are substantiated and mandate a course of remedial actions with appropriate benchmarks and follow-up subject to regular oversight by the Board of Ministry in annual review, including but not limited to 1.
Hey, just real quick, you said subject. That. So they can recommend follow-up subject to regular oversight of the Board of Ministry. It's saying that they. Oh man, I'm not. I want to make sure that viewers understand or listeners understand that these people, as they're corrected, are subject to the Board of Ordained, not Board of Ordained, the Board of Ministry,
Board of Ministry.
overseeing them in these different ways. It's including but not limited to. Pick up where you left off.
Okay, yeah. So they, well, before I go on,
Okay.
so they get to agree that these allegations are substantiated, and then determine like, okay, what's going to happen here. You can mandate a course, I guess is what it says.
A course of action, I think.
Mandate a course of remedial actions. Okay, yeah, we'll get into the next one.
Okay, go ahead.
1, program of continuing education. 2, a sabbatical leave. 3, personal counseling or therapy. 4, program of career evaluation. Or 5, peer support and supervision. So they get to pick one of these 5. Well, it's not limited to these 5 things. These are just examples.
They could hypothetically require all of these 5 things and more.
Yeah. But it's all under the Board of Ministry. They're making sure these things are happening and are being done.
And hypothetically, I think these also could have been conditions of not escalating to this point as well. But now it's really spelling out.
Yeah, if they come to an agreement saying, "Oh, okay, we need you need counseling or whatever to get through this at the first step," then yeah, they could have done that.
Yeah, I don't know why they spell it out here rather than, just all along the way. These are things that could be, anyway, these are specific things that can be. And I should say, once it gets to this point, I would imagine it's pretty hard for a clergy member to come back from this point, so I'm pessimistic about this righting the ship. Once there's a paper trail and they fought it to this point and there's this remedial action and oversight that's required, I think that puts a bad taste in everybody's mouth about a clergy.
Yeah, so, well, everybody else's mouth. Well, like, what about what about the clergy's mouth? Like, what if they're like, okay, you made me go through all of this stuff and I'm kind of upset. I'm holding some grudges.
Yeah,
I can't
that
come
happens
back. I
too.
thought that's what you were going for. But
I think both would be the case, yeah.
Yeah, that would be rough. Yeah.
Especially like if you fought it all the way along and you're still going, no, I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
In which case it does go on to this next one.
Okay. So the other option was C. The committee may find the allegations are substantive, substantiated, and recommend an involuntary status change, such as surrender of credentials, administrative location, involuntary leave of absence, or involuntary retirement.
So if they're recalcitrant, they refuse to acknowledge the authority of the Board of Ministry to do these things to them, then the board can say, well, then we've got to change your status in the denomination. Either you can't be clergy anymore, we need your credentials, we need you to take a break, or we need you to just go ahead and retire because we're just not going to be able to see eye to eye on this.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. 3, administrative review. The administrative review.
You didn't cover that previous paragraph. Outcomes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did skip that, didn't I? Outcomes A or B shall be determined by a majority vote of the committee and reported to the Board of Ministry. Outcome C shall require a 3/4 vote of the committee and the ratification by a majority of the Board of Ministry, as well as a majority of the clergy session.
So it'd really have to be pretty extreme because you're not only getting a majority of the Board of Ministry, but you're also getting a majority of the clergy
The
session,
clergy
which
session
is
would be the district superintendents, right?
new. Clergy session is all the assembled clergy at the next annual conference.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So so if they're taking somebody's like license credentials away,
Mhm.
not only does the board have to have a 3/4 vote, 75. So that's a
Super majority.
yeah. Um, then also the annual conference clergy have to vote on it,
Yeah.
and a majority of them. It's not a super majority; they're just a majority.
Right. Yeah. So just know that if you are going to be a negligent clergy, there's a process in place, not just to correct you, but if you fight it, to drag your name through the mud in front of all of your colleagues.
Right.
So you don't want it to get there.
Well, so if it has to go that far,
Yeah.
um, I would think that the information would then have to be released to all the clergy in order to make an actual vote that's
Yeah.
not just off the cuff.
Yeah.
Like they have
We
to.
don't like this guy,
Yeah.
but we don't know why. No, everybody's going to have to see it.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to do point 3?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll do
okay.
3.3.
Go ahead.
Just making sure I didn't skip anymore.
Sure.
3, administrative review. The Administrative Review Committee shall review the report of the investigative response and the entire process used by the Board of Ministry in the investigative response to determine whether it followed the requirements of JPP 2.2 and fair process, which is paragraph 804. It shall have no authority to review the facts of the case or decide on its merits. The committee shall issue a report on the process and its compliance with the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline, which report shall be given to the respondent, the complainant, the bishop and cabinet, and to the Board of Ministry and clergy session prior to any actions by those bodies on the investigative response. Prior to its report, if the committee determines that any error has occurred, it may recommend to the appropriate body, or persons or body, that actions be taken promptly to remedy the error or decide the error is harmless. Whether remedial action is taken shall factor into the response by the Board of Ministry and clergy session. The Administrative Review Committee shall complete its report within 30 days of receiving the matter. You have anything on that one?
I think so. It's just important. A lot of people will go, okay, well, what if the Board of Ministry was corrupt and they did a bad practice and they didn't get a fair shake? Well, there's still another committee, the Administrative Review Committee, which is by discipline supposed to be established already, I believe, that is going to then look at the process that the Board of Ministry went through in their investigative response, and then just verify that they did it correctly. Or if they didn't do it correctly, call them out and say, no, this was really done badly, in which case maybe they would be entitled to a mistrial. Well, not a mistrial, but a retrial. I didn't fully digest whether remedial action is taken shall factor into the response by the Board of Ministry and clergy session. The Administrative Review Committee shall complete its report. So it has to be prompt, first off. And then what I think I understood is that the punishments meted out can't actually be affected until the Administrative Review Committee comes out with their final report.
Right. So they're automatically reviewing all of these cases. It's not like, oh, they can review. That's what I was looking for. They're reviewing it as soon as it's done.
Yeah, I think it's a compulsory checking of was authority abused in this instance or not. So they can't retry the case. They're just making sure that they followed the correct policy and procedure.
Yeah, it's in compliance with the book of discipline.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go on
Great.
to the next one. 4, appeal. The respondents or complainants both have the right of appeal of the decision by the investigative response of the Board of Ministry. The appeal shall go to the full Board of Ministry, with no members of the investigative committee voting as part of the full board action. No member. Let me finish that. And then may be appealed to the clergy session. Did you get? What does that mean? My brain's not working.
So when it was kicked up to the Board of Ministry, I don't think the full board actually reviewed it. I think it was just a few of the members of the Board of Ministry. And I think a usual board of ministry is like 15 people, I think they're shooting for.
Yeah, we went over this, but I don't remember what it was. Yeah, because only in this process, it's going to be 5 people.
Yeah.
So,
So if either the plaintiff or the respondent have a problem with the decision reached, then they can appeal it, and then it goes to the full board of ministry. It was just a group of 5 before. Now it's going to be the full group, and I think it's saying that nobody in that group of 5 can vote.
okay. Let's go on. Both bodies shall have access to the full report of the investigative response and additional evidence.
The other body it's referring to there is the clergy session, I believe. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they can appeal to the board of ministry and then maybe appeal to the clergy session.
Very good. Okay.
So both bodies shall have access to the full report of the investigative response, and additional evidence, testimony, and statements may be presented by both sides during the appeal. So they get to bring in other evidence on the appeal. I feel like
It
that's
certainly sounds like it, yeah.
okay. I don't know if that's normal or not. Usually, when I think of an appeal, you don't get to bring. I don't know. I'm gonna speak out of my depth
So,
with
well,
that.
the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline speaks to certain norms, rules within the process. And so one of the things that it rules, you can't be subject to double jeopardy, which is where
Right.
you're tried for the same thing more than once, unless there is new evidence comes out that significantly changes it.
Yeah.
It makes sense that then they would be open in the midst of an appeals process to continue to be open to new evidence.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. We talked about the one of those TV shows last time we talked about this. So,
Yeah.
all right. The decision of the board of ministry is final unless notice of appeal is filed with the bishop with a copy of 2 other parties to the administrative complaint within 30 days of the release of the decision. The decision of the clergy session is final with no further appeal. So, clergy session, you don't get another appeal, you get one appeal. The board of ministry is final unless notice of appeal is filed with the bishop.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So I thought the board of ministry had to agree with clergy session and then you could appeal it. But now I guess this is after an appeal has taken place. It can go back to these bodies with new evidence. But at that point, both still have to agree. But if the board of ministry agrees with the clergy session, you can't appeal it. But if the board of ministry agrees and the clergy session doesn't agree, then it can go to the bishop. Yeah, this is not at all clear to me.
Yeah, so they get an appeal. So the board of ministry has made a decision, and the clergy session has made a decision.
Mm-hmm.
You can't appeal the clergy session again. So you're already in an appeal.
Yeah.
You can't then say, okay, is there somebody higher than the clergy session to go to?
Yeah.
You get one, and you're done. With the board of ministry, though, I read that as it's final unless you file another appeal with the bishop.
Yeah. I'm willing to run with that. So this is, it's just a question of when have you reached a dead end? Once the clergy session, after your appeal has made a ruling, that's your dead end.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll go on to the last one, which
Yes.
is expenses. All expenses for the administrative process for clergy shall be borne by the annual conference, except for travel and other expenses of the respondent and their support persons. So somebody is charging a clergy with something.
An administrative complaint.
Yeah,
Although I think
administrative
this
complaint.
applies with a judicial complaint as
Probably.
well, I
So
think.
any of their expenses except for travel, the annual conference has to pay for.
Travel and other expenses of the respondent and their support person. So
Yeah, but that's all. That could be. I feel like that could be anything. Like, is that hotels? What is that?
yeah, they're going to start nickel and diming this, and I don't know how they're going to This is professional language.
You know, they're leaving it open, and I get travel. Okay, you got to travel for this.
Mhm.
They're not paying for that. But does that include hotels? Does that include? I don't know.
Yeah, there's language later on that says at no point should anyone ever be compensated for playing a role in all this. But then it says if it takes so much time that it takes away from their ministerial duties, then we
True.
will put somebody in your place to fill in for you, which that is a monetary benefit. But anyway, yeah, I think they're just establishing principles here where we'll cover most stuff, but if you start getting fancy, you're going to have to cover it.
All right. Okay.
All right, looks like it's my turn to read
Your
again.
turn.
Okay, we're at point 3, procedures governing administrative complaints concerning bishops. So we're still in administrative complaints, but now we're dealing with bishops, not clergy. So even though bishops are considered clergy, they obviously have a different sphere of influence, a greater sphere of influence. Point 1, when the respondent is a bishop, the administrative process outlined in JPP 2, that's the section we just got done with, shall be adhered to with the following changes. The supervisory process shall be administered by the chair of the Transitional Leadership Council or their designee. So remember, the Transitional Leadership Council is the primary governing committee over the whole denomination. There's a chairperson that it's going to get referred to, and they can designate. I wish it said someone else on the TLC, but it just says they can have a designee that they kick it to.
I'm sorry, I got completely. You said JPP 2. I think that's going into the section we're about to go into. Section 2, right?
I thought we're on point 3 right now.
Right.
So the preceding section was point 2, and it describes the process for going through an administrative response, an administrative complaint response.
Okay.
So
It's talking about the points now. Okay.
Yeah.
Ignore that then.
Okay. The chair shall inform the conference episcopacy committee where the bishop presides, if any, and all active bishops of the complaint and keep them apprised in its progress. So there's in every annual conference going to be either an annual conference or an episcopal region is going to have an episcopacy committee. So as soon as a complaint is filed, that committee is going to be apprised of it.
Okay. I'm playing catch up.
Yeah. So we're now at the underlined section.
Any investigative, yeah.
Yeah. Any investigative process shall be carried out by a committee of the Transitional Leadership Council. So to me, that says a committee hasn't already been formed for this. They will, once it comes to the TLC chair, they will either handle it themselves or they will designate a person on the committee to handle it. And there will be an established subcommittee of the TLC that reviews this. I think that makes sense.
Okay.
The investigative committee shall not include anyone from the annual conference presided over by the respondent bishop and shall be representative of the global makeup of the church. So if our bishop in our conference gets called up, then nobody on his review committee, investigative committee, shall be from this annual conference. And they're going to intentionally seek out people from not just other annual conferences, but non-American annual conferences. No,
I guess that makes sense.
yeah. Let's see. The TLC shall administer any just resolution of an administrative complaint. Any involuntary status change of a bishop, that's code for it, got removed or against their will, must be recommended by a 3/4 vote of the investigative committee and approved by the TLC by a 2/3 vote. So you have the subcommittee of the TLC that's designated to review this. 3/4 of them have to say, yeah, they did it, and we need to change their status. And then they bring it to the larger TLC. Right now, I think the TLC is between 15 and 20 members. The larger TLC has to approve it by 2/3.
Okay.
Okay. And then it references paragraph 520.3 and 703.2v. These are in the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline. The Administrative Review Committee of the annual conference, presided over by the bishop, shall examine the administrative process and issue its report prior to any action by the TLC. The Transitional Leadership Council's decision shall be final. So we've already seen reference to the Administrative Review Committee That, I believe, has already been established. It is already reviewing all other administrative procedural complaints and resolutions just for clergy. It's that same body that's responsible for reviewing the decisions regarding bishops.
Yeah, so they get to review it and make sure that it's legitimate before the action or decision is like implemented, right? Did I read that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So there's going to be this subcommittee of the TLC that reviews it. So, and it's worth remembering, they said all the other stuff from the previous procedure holds, but they're just different review boards, and then
Okay, so they do get appeals then. Is that
I think so, and I think they also get to be brought before the clergy session at the annual conference. It sounds to me like those things, those procedural things maintain. It's just different bodies that are reviewing them along
well,
the
it
way
says
through.
okay, so this is the Transitional Leadership Council's decision is final, so they don't get an appeal.
Yeah, that it does say that. Thank you. So maybe it does more significantly rework the process than I understood.
Yeah. This is one of those points where I don't like. I wish they would just line it all out again, even if
Yeah.
it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are differences.
Okay.
All right.
Well, let's
Who's
go
paying
on.
for this?
Who's paying for this?
Which is
okay.
the
Yeah.
next point.
Point 2, expenses. All expenses for the administrative process for complaints involving bishops shall be borne by the general church. So insert my usual diatribe against unnecessary bureaucracy and just fire them if they're guilty. But whatever.
Bishops get their travel paid for.
Yeah, it would certainly seem so. Yeah, that's not stipulated or addressed here. So, all right, go ahead, man.
All right, we are in section 2, which is a judicial supervisory process. This is point number 4. Procedures for supervisory response. This is in reference to paragraph 808. Number 1, the first step in resolving a judicial complaint is a required in-person meeting of the complainant, the respondent, and a bishop or presiding elder at the bishop's discretion. Okay. Both the complainants and the respondent are entitled to have with them a support person who shall have voice in the meeting. The participants in the meeting shall be informed with a minimum of 20 days prior to the scheduled meeting.
Let me call a timeout just real quick. I'm sorry, dude. I need to point out to everybody, we have now switched from an administrative complaint to a judicial complaint.
Right, okay.
So we're talking about starting over a whole new process. This is a completely different thing from the administrative complaints against clergy or bishops. This is now dealing with the judicial complaint, which has to do with something criminal or moral in character. So now it's saying there's going to be a supervisory response that requires an in-person meeting of all the main parties. All right, hop back in wherever you want, buddy.
Let's see. So they get 20 days to do that. The purpose of the supervisory response is to, so far as possible, establish facts, consider circumstances and explanations, determine if there is an issue that merits action, and arrive at a resolution of the complaint that restores the compliance and redresses any harms resulting from a violation.
Mm-hmm. So did you track all that?
Kind of.
Okay. I think it's worth at this point reviewing what the different charges are that can be brought in a judicial complaint.
Okay.
So at this point, I've pulled up the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline. This is paragraph 808, judicial complaints. There are 7 complaints that you can charge clergy and bishops of. There's only 6 that you can bring up on laity. I don't know if you remember this.
No.
Laity you can't come at for sexual sin. Clergy you can.
Okay.
So the 7 chargeable offenses for all clergy are conviction or admission of guilt in criminal activities, including but not limited to child or elder abuse, theft, or assault. B, fiscal malfeasance or gross financial mismanagement. C, racial, gender, or sexual discrimination or harassment. D, promoting or engaging in doctrines or practices or conducting ceremonies or services that are not in accord with those established by the GMC. E, disobedience to the order and discipline of the GMC. F, relationships and or behavior that undermines the ministry of another pastor. And G, engaging in sexual activities outside the bonds of a loving and monogamous marriage between one man and one woman, including but not limited to sexual abuse or misconduct, the use or possession of pornography, or infidelity. So some of those are quite broad categories. Whenever it's deemed that a clergy or bishop is guilty of any of these things, then we're describing the process for after a complaint has already been filed and put in writing. Now there's going to be a required in-person meeting of the complainant, respondent, and the presiding elder or bishop. And then there's a timeline that gets put in place with the initial unit of 20 days. And then it's making clear that the ethos here is it's not litigious, it's not vindictive, it's aimed at restoration, peace, not moving this thing forward anymore. So this is one of those things that I've already said I have a problem with. I'm in favor of mandatory minimum punishment. If somebody has molested a child, they just need to immediately be removed. Period. There should not be some kind of process where we're seeking restitution and reconciliation.
Yeah, no.
So I think we need to get clear on what charges require immediate status change. Maybe that's the only one, but I kind of don't think so. Anything of a sexual nature, anything deal with, well, I don't know. We don't need to get into that right now, but this is where I think I see something lacking, not just in the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline, but I've read the first 7 pages of this. I see nothing about mandatory minimum protecting victims or anything like this. I see a lot of concern for seeking peace and resolution on the front end.
Yeah, those would seem a weird thing to then let somebody back, especially if they're found guilty. If they're not found guilty, that's one thing. But if they're found guilty, like letting them back in a bishop's position or a clergy position, like that just seems like a weird.
If I'm thinking sympathetically with the authors of this, there's no world in which they are finding a just resolution for this and they're guilty. Like either they're going to get out immediately and suffer criminal charges, or they're going to be exonerated. But there is no middle ground where.
So the minimum charge would be to get out, would it not?
So right off the bat, the language here is you're going to seek a just resolution. But I think what they would say is even if the other party filing the complaint all of a sudden completely sells out and wimps out, the bishop or presiding elder is not going to allow them to re-enter the pulpit. They can also in this process say, no just resolution. We're going forward with prosecuting on this. So I would just rather it not even be a hypothetical possibility that they have a just resolution. I would rather it be, if it's obviously clear that they're guilty, then there is no just resolution. They're out,
Yeah.
All
okay.
Right.
Number 2, if the respondent is a bishop, the supervisory process shall be administered by the chair of the Transitional Leadership Council or their designee. That's paragraph 810.1. That's pretty straightforward. 3, the supervisory response shall be completed within 60 days of the receipt of the complaint by the person administering the complaint, with a possibility of only one 30-day extension if agreed upon by both the respondent and the complainant. You have nothing to say on that?
I don't
reached
think
for
I
the thing
do.
like okay.
No.
All right. Yeah, that's straightforward. There's the timeline. Sure. 4, the supervisory response shall result in one of 3 possible outcomes.
Can you guess what they are? It's the same 3 we've always got.
Should
Go
be
ahead.
some to go through them anyways.
Yeah, do it. Yeah.
The first outcome, A, the presiding elder or district superintendent or bishop dismisses the complaint with the agreement of the majority of the presiding elders in the annual conference. Or if the respondent is a bishop, the chair of the Transitional Leadership Council dismisses the complaint with the agreement of the majority of the Transitional Leadership Council, as having no basis in church, law, or fact. In such a case, the presiding elder, bishop, or Transitional Leadership Council chair shall provide a written rationale for dismissing the complaints, which shall be placed in the respondent's personnel file, and copies of which shall be given to the complainant and respondent.
So you'll notice that the weight, the level of attention, the number of eyes on this, and high-ranking eyes is greater in a judicial complaint than in an administrative complaint. So there is a higher degree of seriousness here. It can be dismissed, but it can't be just one person making the decision. There's either the cabinet of the conference or the TLC of the whole denomination that has majority vote.
Whereas before the bishop or district superintendent, just one of them could get rid of it.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
right?
When we were investigating administrative,
Yeah.
and of course it could still be appealed,
Right.
but here the default is there's more eyes looking at this.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. These are more serious situations.
Indeed.
Option B, a resolution of the complaint is agreed upon by all parties, signed, and placed in the respondent's personnel file. The resolution should specify which officer or body of the church will be responsible to ensure that the stipulations of the resolution are followed and maintained.
I underlined that second sentence because I recently learned. I don't know how familiar you are with MK Ultra and Project Chaos. There were a number of secret operations under the CIA and the FBI that were exposed in the 1960s by what was called the Church Commission. And it was agreed upon by the Church Commission, had the full force of the federal government. You are going to turn over all your files to us. They will be put in the public record. They lost face publicly, the CIA and FBI, but they never submitted to the Church Commission's rule that they would
Really?
submit. They destroyed a lot of their records, and then they just didn't even submit a lot of their records, and everybody just moved on. So very interesting piece of history, very galling because, of course, these trends have continued. But all that to say, it's very important that you have not just the right decision, but you have the right follow-up.
Right.
And so designating the follow-up is actually sometimes even more important
Right.
in some ways. So you can have a just resolution here. And within that, you're going to be very clear. It goes in their personnel file. We've already talked about that. You're going to be very clear about what the follow-through is going to be and who's responsible for it.
Yep. Specify who's going to be responsible for it. Yeah, I like that. That's good. All right, option C. A resolution of the complaint is not agreed to, and the presiding elder, bishop, or transitional leadership council chair determines that the allegations have a basis in fact that merits a response. In such case, the complaint shall be forwarded to a counsel for the church to present the complaint to the Committee on Investigation for an examination and investigative process. All right, so they don't come to a resolution. They don't kick it out. They then have to send it to another committee. Interesting.
Yeah, this is the escalation.
Right.
So there's dismissal. That's the opposite of escalation. There's a just resolution, which is the medicine that can be immediately applied, or there's an escalation, in which case there's church counsel hired, which is essentially a prosecuting attorney, if you use the worldly analog. And then, that's where this goes from here. We go to Section 3, a judicial investigative response. So before it was a judicial supervisory process, but now we escalate to an investigative response. These words sound, very professional, not very intimidating, but that it is. This is an escalation. So we're looking at this is Section 3, judicial investigative responses, point 5 now. Composition of the Committee on Investigation. This corresponds with paragraph 809 in the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline. So now we're going to have a Committee on Investigations. How do you put it together? Point 1. When the respondent is a bishop, the Transitional Leadership Council shall appoint a global committee on investigation. Bishops who are members of the TLC shall nominate persons to be elected. The Transitional Leadership Council shall nominate persons reflecting the racial, ethnic, geographic, and gender diversity of the church. So it's talking about bishops so the complaint is against a bishop. Bishops who are members of the TLC shall nominate persons to be elected. That's weird to me.
Yeah, that one threw me off. Like I'm not understanding that. So the Transitional Leadership Council gets to appoint the committee, but if the bishop is all bishops are not all bishops are on the Transitional Leadership Council, right? Or are all bishops on the Transitional Leadership Council?
No, I don't think all of them are.
Okay. So
But if they are on them, then what?
bishops who are members of the TLC shall nominate persons to be elected.
Elected for what? For the committee?
The committee that's investigating them? Because that sounds weird.
That does sound weird.
Because that sounds like it's conflict of interest right off the bat. Maybe that's just worded wrong and they need to look at that, or
Almost certainly.
we're just
Take
incredibly ignorant.
Take a note. I got to ask one of the guys that crafted this what this was meant. The sentence after that, the Transitional Leadership Council shall nominate persons reflecting the racial, ethnic, geographic. That's just the refrain among all this. We're not going to have just a bunch of people from the same place that look the same. And, okay, that's fine. But that first, okay, I'll read on while you're typing.
JPP 5.
5.1. The committee shall consist of 9 members. So this is still when the respondent's a bishop. 5 will be ordained clergy who are not bishops, and 4 professing members, and 9 alternate members. 5 of whom shall be ordained clergy who are not bishops, and 4 of whom shall be professing members. If possible, no 2 members and alternates shall be from the same annual conference. All geographical regions of the church shall be represented on the committee. Committee members must be in good standing and must be of good character. The committee shall elect a chairperson and secretary and organize following its appointment. 5 clergy and 4 laity or their alternates seated as members of the committee shall constitute a quorum. Where technically feasible, members of the committee may participate in meetings and hearings through video conferencing. So
I didn't get that, but that's all just what is the composition of this committee on investigation, right?
it'd be 9 people.
Okay.
5 of them clergy, 4 of them laity, and then you have replacements for all of them. So 18 total people. And then a quorum can only be reached to have deliberations when you have 9. So ideally you have the original 9, but if one of them can't be there, then their replacement fills in.
Okay.
And then, you try and get a diverse array of people involved, and then video conferencing is an option, which we've already talked about. So anything else?
No, other than never mind. I'm not going to go there.
Let's go to point 2. When the respondent is a clergy person, not a bishop, each annual conference shall elect a committee on investigation to consider judicial complaints against clergy members of the annual conference in accordance with paragraph 613.5. So we've already covered that section. I don't know what episode that would be. We need to come up with like a little chart where we can easily consult what episode covered what ground. So,
I mean, if they look at the thumbnail, it's got the thing on there.
Yeah, look at the thumbnail. Why are you so lazy? All right, point 3. When the respondent is a lay person, the presiding elder and the district lay leader, if there is one, shall appoint a committee on investigation consisting of 4 professing members and 3 clergy. So this is now a total of 7. I don't think it... Look up paragraph 613.5 and see if it stipulates how many people need to be a part of it. With the bishop, there needed to be 9. Now with the lay person, there's only going to be 7, and there's a majority lay over clergy, whereas with the bishop, it was majority clergy over lay.
613.5?
613.5 is where it stipulated these things. Yeah. So
there's not a 613. Paragraph 613.5. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what it said on there, yeah.
613 is transitional provisions. Says they may have updated this again. Because I'm looking at this.
Well, no,
March.
the JPP was published before this latest version of the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Disciplines. So maybe they augmented it and then changed the numbering. Okay, let's look at what's the name of the board that
Annual Conference Boards and Committees is 612.
Okay.
Committee on Investigation, is that what we're looking for?
We're on 612. All right. I'm trying to include
5.
everybody else here. All right, we're at 612.5, you said?
Page 80.
All right, going to page 80.
Sorry, just read it. Committee on Investigation.
There it is. I'm there.
The Committee on Investigation shall be responsible for considering judicial complaints against clergy as set out in Part 8, judicial administration of this transitional book of doctrines and discipline, and specifically 809.2. We are on.
So I was curious how many people are on this. So it says it in point A there. There shall be 7 members. So similar to laity. So bishops had 9 members. Clergy and laity both get 7 members on theirs. 7 alternate members, 4 ordained clergy, and 3 laity. So the balance gets changed. For laity, it's a majority lay, 4 versus 3. For clergy, now it's majority clergy, 4 versus 3. None of the members or alternates shall be members of the board of ministry or the cabinet or their immediate family members. Members shall serve 3 years, may succeed themselves once. Okay, so of the 3 levels that can be filed complaints against, and there needs to be a committee on investigations. For laity and for bishops, you have not ad hoc, but you have a committee put together when the situation is presented.
Mm-hmm.
But for clergy, there is a permanent committee established by the annual conference that is in place all the time.
Yeah, that's how I was reading it.
Okay. So we've made
and
some
for
important...
laypersons, it wouldn't be a permanent thing. It would be as the need arises.
Yeah, I think what's anticipated here is there will not be nearly as many complaints against bishops and laity as there will be against just normal clergy.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay. So
did you finish out 3?
I think I did finish off 3. The committee should reflect racial, ethnic, and gender diversity. 5 members shall constitute a quorum. Oh, that's different. And we didn't see what the quorum would be for clergy, but for the bishops, you had to have all 9 there or the replacements. Here, it's just saying a majority of the crew.
I mean, I'm sure I know the quorum thing is in that particular section of 612 of the Book of Doctrines and Discipline.
Is it at the 4 clergy and 3 laity shall constitute a quorum?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to have a full slate there for clergy, but not for laity. That's interesting.
Yeah. So.
All right, let's see if we can't go through 6 before the end of this episode. Well, no, wait, we're at about time. So
yeah.
I'm really sorry, folks. I wanted to do this in 3 episodes, but it looks like, well, unless it's smooth sailing, we're not going to be able to do it.
It's really going to depend on what comes up, and is that an issue that we've got to talk about or not.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
There could be some really boring parts in here, and we might get through it real quick. But
something else to write down. I think I want to go ahead and make an overlay of the chargeable offenses. I think that should just be something that we have as an overlay, because I think we'll come back to it regularly. And then I think that's the only thing else. So
chargeable offenses for clergy.
Well,
and bishops.
Yeah, well, clergy and bishops are the same, and then laity, it's the same
right.
things, only without the porneia.
Okay.
So, all right, that'll conclude this one. I know the only people who are on board now are the people who like this stuff. So if you see anything wrong with the analysis that we did, then go ahead and write it out. You can, if it's lengthy, write it in an email at plainspokenpod@gmail.com. If it's shorter, put it in the comments. And then if you know of other people that are interested in this topic but don't know about this series yet, you might forward this to them. What my hope is that by the time that we conclude this JPP section, that TJ and I really are pretty decent at navigating this hypothesized legal process, and that the fruit of this can be, once the denomination comes together and we do have the judicial process kind of being followed, that we can do good commentary and review on that stuff. So we're going to try and hold on to this information and not, let it go as soon as we move on to the next section. We'll see if we can hold on to it. I've already said my brain doesn't do well with stuff like this.
There's a lot of okay, now we got to go back to the Book of Discipline. Oh, we got to go back to the JPP. Just throw it all in the same thing. I don't know. I would like to understand why these are 2 separate documents. If somebody knows that would be great.
What I suspect is they knew how much bad sentiment there was towards the UMC, and having this big, thick thing, and this was actually smaller than the previous one, but they knew we need to have something that gives the appearance of being streamlined while still crossing the T's and dotting the I's.
I guess it doesn't seem to me. It just seems more complicated and unnecessary. Like, just throw all this stuff in the same one. Like, why can't these be sub paragraphs for?
It's the optics are so bad whenever you have the Transitional Book of Doctrines and Discipline. You have 9 sections, 8 of them are pretty short, and then the longest one is judiciary. It just gives this impression of we're going to be very litigious. We're going to be taking everybody to court. We're going to be very anal retentive, and it's bad for.
I don't care about the optics. Like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like, it's still going to be long. It's there. So just like own it.
Yeah. I don't have anything to say to add on top of that. But anyway, we appreciate y'all being along with us. God bless you, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.